Bluter. We got to get to it. Mama Bluter and Aaliyah Boston speaking on the GOAT CC on NBC Sports. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
One of the most transcendent players in the history of women's basketball, and Caitlin Clark, and it's her birthday today. You guys both shouted her out.
Yes, that's my
Coach
girl.
Bluter and Aaliyah. Yeah, you can see.
Lisa Blutter and Aaliyah Boston just delivered one of those rare, authentic exchanges you don't often get from sports coverage, openly showing how much Caitlin Clark means to them while marking her birthday and reflecting on the bond they share. Watching that kind of sincerity makes it hard not to contrast it with the current reality in Indianapolis, with the very elements they're describing, mutual belief, real chemistry, and trust, feel noticeably absent under Stephanie White's approach. That said, coaching tension isn't the focus here. What matters is the bigger picture. While players are publicly celebrating each other and highlighting what strong relationships look like, the WNBA itself is facing serious financial instability, a situation that has the potential to reshape the league from top to bottom in ways that go far beyond any single team.
And then Aaliyah doing a matchup of pictures, which is really sweet. I love this for you guys because you guys are both still really close. Obviously, Aaliyah as a current teammate, but how close are you still, Coach, to Caitlin?
Oh, I talk to her quite often. You know, I follow all of her successes and everything. I just always want to be in her camp and support her. I have so much admiration for her, for what she has.
Mama Bluter, we love you. Lisa Bluter. Mama Bluter, we love you.
This is the picture Fever supporters have been imagining ever since Blutter stepped away. The coach who helped shape Caitlin now leading the teammate who complements her game better than anyone. Instead, Indiana is operating under a system that forces Aaliyah Boston into a role that doesn't fit her strengths at all, a mismatch that undermines what she does best. But that situation isn't the core focus here. What actually matters is the timing. While Blutter and Boston are publicly highlighting trust, connection, and shared belief, the league itself is locked in a serious confrontation, with the WNBA Players Association and team owners at odds over a proposal the owners claim would leave them facing roughly $700 million in losses if they agree to the players' demands.
Now, the players' union is sitting here. The WNBA owners came out and said, listen, we're not doing this deal. What y'all trying to get us to sign will put us $700 million in the hole, and we are not in the business of doing that. So you guys can basically kick rocks is essentially what the WNBA owners told these players. And the WNBA players, they've been going on there trying to win public perception battle.
$700 million is the figure being thrown around, and it's one the league's owners have repeated publicly, stating that accepting the Players Association's proposal would leave them hundreds of millions underwater. The union, however, disputes that claim, taking to social media to rally supporters by pushing petitions and encouraging fans to contact the league office, while largely avoiding direct bargaining at the table. What stands out even more is the silence from ownership. As ESPN reports, there has been no reply to the players' most recent submission for nearly a month. Digging into that proposal explains why, since it closely mirrors the same framework the owners already turned down, including an identical revenue-sharing model that, according to ownership, is what leads to that massive $700 million deficit.
Our priority is a deal that significantly increases player salaries, enhances the overall player experience, and supports the long-term growth of the league for current and future generations of players and fans, the league said in a statement earlier this month. So we are still at a standstill.
Let's slow this down and break it apart, because the mechanics are where this whole thing actually collapses. For the first time, both sides are aligned on a core principle. Player pay should be linked directly to league revenue. That's the lone point of agreement. Everything unravels immediately after. Ownership insists that payouts be calculated from net income, meaning what's left after expenses are paid, while the players want their share based on gross intake, the total cash brought in before a single bill is covered. Under the league's current framework, players would receive the equivalent of roughly 70% of projected net earnings. But that percentage isn't locked in by any hard guarantee. The structure also places all downside risk on the teams, forcing them to absorb losses from revenue dips or rising costs, including expenses they don't fully control. Put that into a real-world scenario. If a new media deal generates $300 million, but operating costs run $200 million for travel, production, marketing, and logistics, the league is left with $100 million in actual profit. Under the owner's model, player compensation comes from that remaining $100 million. Under the union's approach, players would still take their cut from the full $300 million, no matter what it costs to make that money in the first place.
Love and miss you. Why can't you just come get Stephanie White the hell out of here, man? Mama Bluter, why are you leaving us to deal with this Stephanie White lady? God, man, you know how much easier and at peace Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans could be if Lisa Bluter was the head coach. Think about how easy.
So this is where things sit right now, completely frozen. And while some are saying the league's future is on the line, that misses what's actually happening. The decision on the ownership side appears to already be made, and the pause we're seeing isn't hesitation, it's leverage. There's no reply because there's nothing left to discuss from their perspective. They put a final framework on the table, the union turned it down, then sent back a version that barely changed anything from what was already rejected. At this stage, ownership is shifting from negotiation to contingency planning, including the possibility of moving ahead without the current players. The timeline matters here. Months ago, Adam Silver, who carries real weight in WNBA decision-making, told players plainly that revenue sharing was off the table, noting that pay had already risen significantly through other mechanisms. Publicly, players spoke about a strong working relationship with him, then proceeded to ignore that warning and continued pushing the same revenue-based structure anyway. Now communication has stopped entirely, which isn't a pressure tactic, it's groundwork for a lockout. There's almost certainly a date set internally, a point where if no agreement is signed, the league proceeds with replacement rosters and launches the season regardless. And whether fans like it or not, the reasoning is straightforward. The financial model being demanded guarantees massive losses, and no organization can survive long-term while locking in hundreds of millions in red ink, because that's not bargaining, it's agreeing to collapse. Now stack that against what's happening between the WNBA Players Association and league ownership, and the contrast is brutal, because there's zero trust on either side. Players are flooding social platforms trying to sway public opinion instead of sitting down and bargaining seriously, while owners have gone completely silent, with both camps acting like adversaries rather than partners. The union is urging fans to email league offices and sign petitions, which, frankly, signals panic more than power, because when a professional labor group leans on online campaigns, it's usually because the leverage at the table is gone. What makes this situation especially maddening is the timing. The league just came off its strongest season ever, fueled by Caitlin Clark drawing millions of new eyeballs, pushing ratings higher, filling arenas, and driving merchandise sales through the roof, finally giving the WNBA the relevance it's chased for decades. Instead of building on that momentum, everything is drifting toward a lockout because the union is insisting on an economic structure that would push the league deep into the red. The irony is hard to ignore. At the exact moment players have visibility, interest, and public goodwill, they're risking all of it over a revenue-sharing demand Adam Silver already said was off the table. Ownership's proposal would still raise pay significantly, reportedly equating to about 70% of net revenue, which would place WNBA players among the best compensated relative to league income in American sports. But the union rejected it because they want gross revenue sharing, meaning guaranteed payouts, even if the league loses money. Ownership is pushing back because no business can promise compensation detached from profitability, and that isn't greed, it's basic math. So the path forward is grimly predictable. Players keep posting, owners quietly line up contingency plans, and an unspoken deadline inches closer. The union believes last season's success gives them leverage, assuming the league can't survive without its stars. But ownership understands something the players seem to overlook, which is that the surge in attention centered on Caitlin Clark as an individual, not the union as an institution. If the league moves ahead with replacement players and Clark participates, the balance of power flips instantly because fans followed her, not the bargaining position. That's the uncomfortable reality here. The moment Clark became bigger than the league, the union's negotiating strength weakened. And if they don't adjust quickly, they may end up watching others take their roster spots and their paychecks. When the article says talks are stalled, what it really means is the final offer is already on the table. It's been declined, and now both sides are waiting to see who caves first, with ownership holding the advantage because they control the books and know exactly what the league can and cannot afford.